Phil Leonard?
He will be calling in, Joe.
Thank
He's
you.
on phone, yeah.
Thank you.
Phil, can you hear us yet?
I see two Joes on the
Brianna.
screen right now. One.
We are live now.
I think the other one of me might be Darlene. She wanted to listen to Darlene Plumley, the CEO of Frontenac Island. She wanted to listen in to the meeting this morning.
Brianna,
Yep.
can you please make sure that Phil Leonard is unmuted so that he can speak as part of the conversation?
He is allowed to talk, and I just asked him to unmute, so he would just need to do that.
Can you hear us, Phil?
He'll
Oh,
just
good.
need to unmute.
I guess the system patches the line through to Zoom.
Yeah, he is in attendance. He just hasn't unmuted as of yet. He has the permission to do that though.
Okay, well, that's hope he unmutes. We've got a quorum without him, I believe. So why don't we formally open the meeting? And the first resolution is that the agenda of October 14th, 2020 meeting of Planning Advisory Committee be adopted. Would somebody like to second that for us? Ann?
I'll second it.
And Barb seconds it. Any questions on the agenda before we call the vote? All in favor? Oh, Lisa, you're in now. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
So I called the vote. I think I saw everybody's hand go up. Yeah, there's some delays in my screen. But yeah, you're still up, Ron. You can put it down now. Anybody against? No? Okay, we'll move on. And I have to ask, does anybody have a pecuniary interest to declare today and the nature thereof? Having seen none? No. Oh, good, Phil, you're on. Thank you. Welcome. So no pecuniary.
None for me.
You got it unmuted now, so if you want to say anything, just speak up because I can't see you like the others.
Okay.
Okay, the next is the adoption of the last minutes. And it reads that the minutes of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting held June 22nd, 2020 be adopted. And can I have a mover for that? Yeah, Ron, move.
Dennis, before we move that, there was an error in the minutes that Brianna sent out this morning. They have has me attending 2 times, and I believe it should be Deputy Mayor Vanderwall that should be on the list of attendees. I sent Brianna a note on that this morning.
Okay, that was let me see that.
The June 20th, I believe, the ones that Megan just sent out this morning.
Yeah.
That is noted, and I
Yeah.
will make that change.
Okay, you'll make that change? Good.
Thank you.
Oh, Ron's on. Welcome.
Hello.
Okay. And since a couple just joined, I'll ask that pecuniary interest again. Does anybody have a pecuniary interest to declare this morning? Phil already told me no, so nobody else. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, which reads Miss Beverly Saunders, Planning Echo View Consulting Services, Inc., representing Ardoch Lake Development, Inc., will provide all members of the committee an overview on the amended application for the plan of condominium. So we don't need a resolution on that. We just welcome Beverly in to do the presentation.
Sorry to interrupt there, Chair. We are adopting both the June 22nd, 2020 minutes and the July 22nd, 2020 minutes. The first June, those were the ones that were sent out in the original agenda, and the addendum is the July 22nd ones that we will be switching Ron Higgins for Ron Vanderwall. That has been added twice. So we just need to adopt the June 22nd minutes
Oh, okay.
that are not the public meeting.
Version of the agenda I have doesn't show the July one.
That was sent out this morning as an addendum. I can read
Oh,
that for you if you want.
If you could read that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. So the first one is that the minutes of Planning Advisory Committee meeting held June 22nd, 2020 be adopted.
Yes, we did that one. So
That was the
July-
original. It was a switch up. The minutes that I sent out this morning were the July 22nd, 2022. So I believe that it was just a confusion with Ron. We're trying to adopt the June 2022 minutes now, and the change will be for the July 22nd.
Okay, so we've handled the June 22nd. Now could you read the July 22nd resolution?
I didn't read the July 22nd because that is the one that we're going to be making that change to. So I just need a mover and a seconder first for the June 22nd, 2020. And Fran, thank you.
We already did that.
No, we did, Dennis.
Okay, I'll go along then. Okay, we got a mover and seconder, Fran and Ron. Is there any questions on the June 22nd minutes? Having seen none, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, the July minutes then, Brianna.
Yeah, and then so that of the minutes of the Planning Advisory Committee held July 22nd, 2020 be adopted. They're going to be as amended to remove Ron Higgins twice and switch for Ron Vanderwall. And I just need a mover and a seconder for that.
And we have Ron and Lisa.
Perfect. We can move on to the Beverly deputation and presentations now. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let me ask if there's any questions, any more questions on the July minutes? Having seen none, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Hands up. It's unanimous. Okay, now we can move on to Beverly's presentation. Sorry about that, Beverly, but we had some administrative things to do.
No problem at all.
Welcome, and there was quite a bit of pre-reading in the package, so we have that. So
Yeah, so I won't go too far into the details because Megan's done a great job of highlighting everything that's been done on this application. It is a long-standing application. We did provide some delegation materials in advance of this meeting, which summarized essentially just the history on the file in terms of large changes that have been made since the original submission which was deemed complete in 2012. So I'll just very briefly go over that this is a 23 lot subdivision or vacant land of condominium application, and that there will be 15 shoreline lots and 8 inland lots. That's been negotiated back and forth in order to accommodate public comments primarily, but also to accommodate new local planning policies under the official plan and the zoning bylaw. As I mentioned in the delegation, this application was submitted in 2011 and deemed complete in 2012. And so typically under the Planning Act, there isn't a requirement to meet those policies, but our client has worked in good faith to meet those policies in order to ensure that lower tier municipality, yourselves, and the public are comfortable with this proposal moving forward. With that, I appreciate Megan's report. It was very thorough, so I'll just be here to answer any questions that you might have regarding the proposal. There's been quite a bit of work that's happened over the past 8 years. So with that, I'll leave it there, and I appreciate your time.
thanks, Beverly. Do we have any questions for Beverly this morning?
Not at this point. We may, as we go through the presentation that Megan's going to provide.
Yeah, it's related to North Frontenac's recent request on the docking, some minor changes there.
That's right.
Okay,
Well, I'm here to answer any questions throughout this.
yeah,
meeting.
so you'll be staying with
Yeah.
us for the meeting? Okay,
Perfect.
so Megan, is it your turn to go through? Next on the agenda is briefings. Is that where you come in, Megan?
We don't have any briefings on the agenda this morning. However, the next item is the Ardoch Lake presentation and report. So if you're okay with that, I will proceed and give a brief presentation.
Yes, item 7. If you could go through the report that you have in the package, that'd be good if you could summarize that. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you. So good morning, members of the Planning Advisory Committee and members of the public who may be watching on the live stream. For any members of the public who do not know me, my name is Megan Rickwald, and I am the Manager of Community Planning at the County of Frontenac. And the county provides and approves plans of subdivision and plans of condominium across the county, so in our lower tier townships as well. As Beverly mentioned, the application before Planning Advisory Committee today is for 23 units as part of a vacant land condominium on Ardoch Lake in North Frontenac. There are 15 waterfront units proposed that will all meet the zoning requirements, so be a minimum of 2 acres in size and have a minimum of 77 meters of frontage along Ardoch Lake, as well as 8 inland units are proposed, so no water frontage, but they also will comply with all the provisions in the zoning bylaw. There are proposed to be 2 condominium roads constructed to access the units, and a condition of this approval will be that those condominium roads be constructed to the county's private roads policies as a minimum. There will also be, each of the units will be serviced with individual wells and septic systems. Any septic system within 300 meters of Ardoch Lake will be required to be installed at a tertiary system. And the inland units, so 7 out of the 8 inland units, the septic systems will be situated back greater than 300 meters. So if they're outside that influence area, no tertiary system is required. The application has been reviewed by all required agencies. So as you'll note in the report, it was reviewed by Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority, Public Health, Ministry of the Environment, as well as other peer review agencies, such as Melrose, who reviews hydrogeological studies for the county. So planning staff, as you'll note in the report, review the application for consistency with the new provincial policy statement, so the 2020 document, as well as conformity with the county and township official plans, including the most recent official plan in North Frontenac, as well as we looked at compliance as a whole with the North Frontenac zoning bylaw. The conditions proposed in the report, the majority of these are standard, but many have been proposed as well by the agencies as part of the circulation, as well as we worked very closely with township staff. So the clerk's department, public works department, fire department, and building department to ensure that the development was good planning in nature and met all requirements of township staff. As you will note in the report as well, on September 11th, myself and Beverly were back to North Frontenac Council, where North Frontenac Council did review the application and did recommend approval to County Council for the amended application with 15 waterfront units. As part of that approval as well, North Frontenac Council recommended docking restrictions, so docks to be placed on only units outside of the spawning grounds, which are identified on the draft plan itself, and a limited area, so size of those docks, as well as communal docking along Block D for access from the inland units, as well as access from the units that are not permitted individual docks because they abut the spawning grounds. So should the Planning Advisory Committee recommend approval of the application today, the recommendation will go to next week's County Council meeting on October 21st for a final decision. Should County Council approve the application, planning staff will prepare a notice of decision and will circulate the notice in accordance with the Planning Act. So to all members of the public who've been involved in the process and request to be notified, as well as their set agencies under the Planning Act. Following the appeal period, if the application is approved, The applicant is then responsible for fulfilling the conditions which are noted in the planning report. So many of these conditions will be fulfilled through the condominium agreement that will be entered into with the Township of North Frontenac, as well as there are other conditions such as the rezoning, which will be where the docks are specifically limited in terms of area and size, and then greater setbacks proposed as well. So that summarizes my report there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
I've done you mute. Yes, Barb, you have a question?
I want to ask Megan, did I understand you to say that the private roads will be built according to county requirements?
So the private roads will be constructed in accordance with the private lane study that was done at the county, and it's the same study that is used for the requirements in the Township of North Frontenac official plan as well. So
Okay,
all of the
thank you.
public works departments work together in those.
Right.
Thank you. Any more questions? And Phil, if you have any, speak up. Okay, well, maybe it's time to read the resolution then. Brianna, would you mind reading that resolution?
Not a problem. I'm going to read it now. So whereas an application has been filed with the County of Frontenac for a draft plan of vacant land condominium located at part of lots 22 and 23, concessions 1 and 2, geographic township of Clarendon, Township of North Frontenac, County of Frontenac. And whereas the Planning Advisory Committee and the Council of the County of Frontenac considered all written and oral submissions received on this application, the effect of which helped the Council of the County of Frontenac make an informed decision. And whereas the application is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, conforms to the Frontenac County Official Plan, Township of North Frontenac Official Plan, will comply with the Township of North Frontenac zoning bylaw, and has been reviewed in accordance with the criteria of Section 5124 of the Planning Act. Therefore, it be resolved that the Planning Advisory Committee receive the Planning Advisory Committee application for draft plan of vacant land condominium approval 10 CD 2012-001 located at part of lots 22 and 23, concessions 1 and 2, geographic Township of Clarendon, Township of North Frontenac, County of Frontenac, Ardoch Lake report. And further, that the Council of the County of Frontenac approve 10 CD 2012-001 vacant land condominium development, including draft conditions of approval attached to this report as attachment 2.
Very good. Thank you, Brianna. Any questions on that resolution from committee members? Barb?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. I was looking through my information and I have reports on the RDOT, we called it Subdivision then, from 2007. I never did agree with it because of the size of the lake and the depth of the lake. However, when they attended council and asked for the subdivision, council gave them a motion of approval in principle. I don't believe some of them even saw the lake. However, I've followed it through and I know a lot of work has been done and I will support it today. Thank you.
Thank you. And Megan, your hand was up for a moment. Did you have a comment?
Yes, sorry, I just looked back at my notes and realized that I forgot to mention that additional public comments came in over the weekend, and those were circulated out to the Planning Advisory Committee via emails today, and I'm seeing a lot of nodding that everyone saw those comments, so.
Yeah, there was
Thank you.
a way over 20 of them. And I
Yes.
saw the new one as well. Any more questions? And like Barb, I've been involved in this file for quite a number of years, going back as far as 2011, not as far as Barb's experience, but there's been a lot of changes over the years for sure. Ron Higgins has a question or comment.
Not a question, also a comment. I just want to thank Beverly Saunders since she's taken over this file. She's been very collaborative and has worked well between her client and ourselves, and has gone, in my opinion, overboard to meet the new requirements of the official plans and zoning bylaws. And I just want to say a thank you for her cooperation in addressing some of the issues that have been risen both by the public and by council and staff members. So thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
Very good. Any more comments or questions before I call the vote? I shall call the vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Hands up if they're in favor. I think
Yes.
everybody's hands were up, but I'll just ask, does anybody oppose this application? No opposed. That's unanimous.
Sorry, Sorry, Chair. We just need a mover and a seconder.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. Ron will move, and who's going to second that? I think I see Barb's hand starting to come up.
Yes,
It
Okay.
was Lisa's hand that went up, Dennis.
and Lisa, yeah.
Oh, was it? Oh, I'm not
Yeah.
looking down far enough on the screen. Yeah.
It's okay. You got your seconder. That's all that matters.
Okay,
Yeah.
to be perfectly formal, I'll call the vote again. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to Joe's presentation now. The work plan. Joe, do you want to step in?
Yes, thank you. Just before we get to that, I would just want to confirm with Megan in terms of now that the Planning Advisory Committee has endorsed Ardoch Lake, will it be on the next county council agenda for county council's consideration?
That is correct. So the minutes and the reports from this meeting will go out for the October 21st County Council meeting. So that agenda will be published this Friday.
A week today. And I should also thank Megan and Joe and all the staff at the county that spent so many hours on this file over so many years. It was
Thank you.
probably just starting to be active when you joined us. So you've been pretty much on it since the beginning.
Yeah. I
So
think that's
thanks
true.
very much. You've done stellar work.
That's true as
Okay,
No, just as Barb said, this file has been around a long time. And I also want to echo what Councillor Higgins said. I want to thank Beverly for the collaborative approach that she's been working with, particularly with Megan on this file and listening to the public and making the changes that were necessary to, as Barb said, to try to get it to a point where the lake impacts will be minimized. So I want to thank Beverly for your excellent work, and hopefully we'll work with you again on other projects.
Yeah, and thank you to the staff as well. It's been wonderful to work with both of you. You've been very responsive, so we appreciate that.
And it's also a little bit of history in the sense that this is the first subdivision / condominium that has been approved in North Frontenac since amalgamation in 1998. I'll be optimistic and say that if we as an organization or as county council is able to move ahead with communal services, there'll be more opportunities for this type of planning to happen in North Frontenac, whether it's on the waterfront or in some of the villages. So it's a big step forward in some way for North Frontenac.
good point on communal services, Joe. Had we had that available back in 2012, this whole thing might have moved along much quicker.
It certainly would have produced the issue of lake impacts in terms of water quality. So we'll see what happens in the next year. So yeah, thank you, Chairman Doyle. I'll start our discussion on our work plan. Megan and I are going to do a presentation together. The purpose of our report is to provide the committee with a projection of our workload for 2021 and also set up further projected work we expect or would like to be doing from 2022 to 2025. Megan, can I ask you to put the presentation up on the screen, please? Thank you. I'll start off and then I'll ask Megan to get into some more details in a moment. Just first of all, to go over the overall objectives of our department. So again, we have been a department since our CAO, Kelly Pender, recommended to council that we be formed in 2016 to combine both planning and economic development into one department. We're one of the very few counties in Eastern Ontario that have economic development and planning working together and collaboratively. And the major goal is to try to implement strategic regional planning policy to help all areas of Frontenac County. And obviously to manage workload capacity, which I'll be speaking to during this presentation, and do our best to provide the best good planning opinions to both the county and the township councils that we work with. And again, engage in support with the ambassador program, which has been a tremendous success. Try to attract new businesses and residents to the Frontenac region. And again, we're going to talk about that. That's a good news story. We've implemented with council the economic development charter. We now have a K&P trail that's connected from the Kingston waterfront past Charbet Lake up to Clarendon. And hopefully when we get the Marysville secondary plan implemented, we'll be working on bringing that trail from the Marysville ferry dock in some way, shape or form down to the ferry to the United States. So we'll have an international connection. And also to promote Frontenac as a destination place. Next, please. So in terms of the planning side of the department, our goal is to really promote, be progressive on regional planning priorities. And one of those examples is the communal services study. Work with the townships to plan and deliver growth opportunities. And that involves not only development applications, but doing the high level planning. For example, the North Frontenac official plan that we worked with the township in 2015 to 2017. And we advanced probably some of the best waterfront policies in Ontario, as well as innovative policies on tiny homes to try to create an environment to attract younger people to the community. Again, we're collaborating with economic development to make sure that our policies align with what the business opportunities are. And develop a planning approval system across the region that's easy to access for both citizens and investors. We've certainly started that with the lean work we've done. There's other opportunities that are coming out of the joint services review that you'll be discussing tonight in your joint meeting. And Megan and I will be taking the opportunity to sit down with the township CAOs and planning staff in the near future to look at better ways of delivering services. So the good news is that we've got growth happening in Frontenac. It's been consistently increasing since the work we started in 2016, and you'll see some charts in our staff report. That's the good news. But where we are right now, we are at a turning point, as I've explained in the report. Because of this growth, we're being pressed by having to deal with the inquiries we're getting with the resources we currently have. And I'm going to provide you with a couple of options of where we go from here and how we can still move ahead on some of the bigger regional issues. Next, please, Megan. So here's some of our achievements. Communal services, is the committee's aware, we're now doing, looking at the governance model about how do we set up some kind of a system, whether it's a utility or a corporation, that would manage these systems across the region so that there would be no financial risk at the council tables for the 4 townships, and having Frontenac treated as equal opportunity for development of communal services across the region. Nobody else is doing this work anywhere in Ontario. I can advise you that the county planning directors group that I work with are very interested in our work, as is the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and the Ministry of Environment. It is a game changer. If we are successful in this, it could certainly provide better community development and certainly help our villages. The work that we've done with Megan leading the Marysville secondary plan, Township Council was progressive in determining that they needed to decide how Marysville is going to grow in the next 20 years before the new ferry arrives, and that's getting near completion. We're been working on the Central Frontenac official plan for 3 years now, and hoping to have a third and final draft in front of council at the end of this year or early next year. At that point, they can decide if they want to go right to holding a public meeting and looking at adopting it. We've completed the most recent population projections, which gives both county council and the township councils a good picture on where we're going to grow and how much we're going to grow. And that's really important for the planning documents we put together. Megan, as well as the contract planner we had, also working with Claire Dodds, the Director of Development Services at South Frontenac, have been leading the lean planning process improvements, which we've started to implement. We're dealing with the highest volume of planning applications. Megan informed me yesterday that this month alone, we have dealt with 22 planning applications, both rezonings and committee of adjustment applications. That is a monthly record since we've been tracking it. It's a symbol of interest in building in Frontenac. And we quickly adapted when COVID hit on March 16th, and we closed our offices to working remotely and continuing to be able to handle the planning applications that we continue to get. Some of the missed opportunities because of the workload is, for example, not able to complete the Central Frontenac official plan before the end of 2020. It's something I'm personally disappointed in. I've been not able to focus as much time as I have on that project due to other resources, but we're pushing to have it done before the end of this year. The community improvement plans that we created and implemented across Frontenac, they needed to be updated, and we have been able to get to that. Providing shared service approach to day-to-day planning. And again, that's something that Megan and I are hoping to tackle throughout 2021. We're still working on implementing lean. We need to update the county official plan, and the new official plans we'll be working on with Central and other townships with the latest provincial policy statement, which came into effect earlier this year. We haven't been able to work on regular updates to consolidating zoning bylaws, for example. And the natural heritage study, which is an important part of the update to the county official plan, we have not been able to put that in front of a budget request to council because we just have not been able to have the resources available to carry that project at this time. Now, these projects are important, even though they're not day-to-day development applications, because they make a difference in making us a development-ready region. They make a difference in separating us from our neighbors and showing investors and developers that we have up-to-date planning policies and a clear vision of what is and is not permitted in our communities. So I'll show you a slide in a few minutes about the time we've been able to spend on this work has not met our key performance indicators, and it's in my mind, it's problematic for us helping good planning across Frontenac. So now I'm going to turn it over to Megan so she can specifically speak to you about what's happening on the ground in the townships. Megan?
Thank you, Joe. So the slide on the screen shows application numbers from 2016 to the beginning of October 2020. And I say beginning because that number continues to increase, and I haven't had an opportunity to update the slides yet this week. The cumulative application numbers across the 3 townships that the county provides planning services to has increased by over 30% since 2016, where you can see that we were trending at approximately 65 applications in 2016, and now we're upwards of 80 plus, and we're still the beginning of October with those numbers. So by October of this year, we have seen more applications processed than in all of 2019, and these numbers are trending to surpass the 2018 numbers as well. The number of applications submitted is out of our control from a planning standpoint, but we need to be adequately resourced to review these applications in a timely manner and ensure that we're meeting Planning Act requirements. So as Joe mentioned, this month alone, we processed over 22 planning applications and had reports for council and committee agendas. And that this is not a trend just local to Frontenac, but development is growing and pressures are increasing across Eastern Ontario as a whole. So in addition to the volume of planning applications increasing, the complexity of planning applications has also continued to increase, with much of the easy land or previously developed land already being developed. So the example that I've got on this slide and the next slide is for 2 severances in North Frontenac along Road 506. And while the slides use a North Frontenac example, by no means is North Frontenac singled out as a complex planning application. This is just a good example, but comparable across the other jurisdictions in Frontenac as well. So while this might appear straightforward on paper, and member Barb Spruill is very familiar with this application as she sits on the Committee of Adjustment in North as well, there was a number of limiting factors and planning considerations that went into processing this application. So the topography along Road 506, there's a large rock outcrop that goes across there, and there was only one place, which is where you see the black line entering onto Road 506, that the Public Works Department felt comfortable issuing an access permit to the newly proposed lot. So this then resulted in a shared driveway to be able to access proposed lot 2 over lot number 1. And you can even see from the squiggle of the line that's the best area to put the shared driveway because of the topography on the site itself. So the site itself was very steep with intermittent plateaus going down to the waterfront. And this resulted in site visits by the Conservation Authority, as well as public health, planning staff, and building staff to ensure that there would be a suitable building location that could meet the requirements and setbacks and was also viable for an actual house in the future. Across the bottom of the slides, you can see them quite as faint, thin lines. You'll see 3 across the water. That's actually a large hydro transmission corridor that bisects the property in a certain area and required extensive review with Hydro One themselves to determine where the easement was across the property, and review and consideration with the applicants as well to determine, okay, if the hydro transmission corridor would further constrain a viable building envelope on the property. And then as I was leaving the property, I noted that in this slide here, the property itself, you can kind of see the transmission corridor along the rear. To the northeast of the property is Mississaugagon Lake, which is an at-capacity lake and requires that any new development within 300 meters, that the septic system be located outside of the watershed that drains into the lake. So this added an additional review agency with the Ministry of the Environment, then providing comments. And because only a top corner, and I think I can draw on here, yes, only a top corner of the lot actually drained towards Mississaugagon Lake, they're able to proceed with the application, but this required that a development agreement be registered on title, ensuring that the septic systems weren't located in that area. So this is just one example, but does show how complex planning applications are becoming in our area with these factors. Oh, and let's see if I can clear that. So in addition to the township work that we do as well, the county, as you're all familiar with, we are the approval authority for plans of subdivision and condominiums across the county. So this slide here highlights some of the key numbers that we've seen and trends with processing of applications recently. So only one application since 2017 has received both draft plan approval and final approval, and that was McFadden Road in South Frontenac. Currently, actually, this slide needs to be updated. There are now 4 applications with draft, or potentially 4 applications with draft plan approval, should Ardoch Lake be supported by County Council next week, but currently there are 3. There are 6 active files under review or preparing for resubmission across the county at this time. In 2020 alone, we've had 50+ emails or phone calls from members of the public with comments on plans of subdivision and condominium applications. And in 2020 alone as well, we've had over 400 correspondence times and instances with township staff, applicants, commenting agencies with respect to the review of plans of subdivision and condominium applications, or updates to our current processes for processing these applications. So you can see that, well, we may not be before Planning Advisory Committee very often with a plan of subdivision or condominium report. There's a lot of action that happens behind the scenes on these files as well. In addition to processing planning applications, this slide highlights other critical functions that our department provides across the county. I'll kind of walk through some of the key areas on the slide, and then the next slide speaks more so to planning inquiries. So planning inquiries themselves take up a significant amount of time of both the community planner and manager of community planning positions, either responding to planning inquiries or attending pre-application meetings themselves. The requests for information have increased, and while systems such as our new planning inquiry intake form that was created through Lean on the website definitely help with ensuring we have adequate information to address and answer planning inquiries, the volume of planning inquiries themselves have continued to increase and are not sustainable. And later on in this presentation, Joe will be discussing opportunities for cost recovery with respect to planning inquiries and some ideas that we have. On the right upper corner of the slide are non-compliance matters. So with respect to non-compliance, we as planning staff are often involved when a notice of contravention has been issued for non-compliance with the zoning bylaw. So oftentimes these files are quite complex, as the property owner has already invested in what they would like constructed on the property, and then we're working with the applicant to determine if that's development that the planning department could support. In addition to planning applications that the Committee of Adjustment or Council may see, we as planning staff are often involved in other files that may never result in a planning application because they don't conform with the policies. So for instance, on Frontenac Islands recently, we've been involved in some placement of trailers and notices of contravention issued there. We recently had some in North Frontenac for decks constructed along the waterfront and other sea can containers across the county. With the current system as well in our lower tier townships being driven by complaints for enforcement, we often end up explaining a lot with property owners of why they are almost feel as though they are being targeted by the process, where we're explaining that it is a complaint-driven process and that even though their neighbor might have been able to get away with something in the past, there is a complaint on their property. The next section of this slide speaks to infrastructure and land. So these are projects that we work on that don't often have a planning application involved with them. So more recently, there's a communications tower proposed in North Frontenac that as part of the development review process by CRINS involved a planning letter being prepared outlining the different policies. The community planner and the director have been working on the Algonquin land claim, which is a long-standing file and process. We as planning staff are often requested to comment on road allowance applications. I know Central Frontenac had a few on their council agenda last night, as well as we are involved in the K&P trail when it comes to management such as easements across the trail. Other associated duties on the slide is a very large encompassing category, but touches on things such as updates to provincial regulations and ensuring that we're following along with those changes. The director has also been working on a site alteration bylaw with Frontenac Islands. We work closely with our agencies, such as the Conservation Authority and Public Health, ensuring and helping them review policies as well. Department administration is typically done by the director, but also with my position as well, touching on items such as budget, management, human resources, and professional development, and then comments and committees. So we've seen in 2020 and even before then that an upwards trend in increased public involvement in the planning process, which is excellent from a planning perspective. That's what we like to see, is the public being involved and why we circulate out notices, but it does take additional resources and staff time as well to ensure that we're adequately addressing those concerns. This next slide here is a personal highlight of mine, and the fact that it touches on new commercial uses and planning inquiries that we receive across the county. So this is really an area that we wanted to bring to the Planning Advisory Committee's attention, as we are seeing an increased number and increased complexity in these planning inquiries, especially when they relate to new commercial uses. So all of the new commercial uses that you see on the slide here, from a drive-in cafe down to the equestrian establishment, have all been received in 2020, with the exception of the boat ice cream delivery. That's a personal favorite of mine. It was an interesting planning inquiry for Frontenac Island to determine if someone could, how they could dock a boat and operate an ice cream delivery facility around Big Sandy Bay. So obviously not this year, but a previous year. So the volume of these planning inquiries has resulted in staff often being reactionary to policy and economic investment, because we don't have the resources to necessarily follow up with people, or we can provide only limited services in terms of guiding them through the planning department and processes, because we don't have those resources. So while we have created documents as part of the lean process for establishing a new business, the complexity of each of these requests, as you can see on the slide, varies greatly. And with each even property, the planning requirements change. So whether you're along the waterfront or whether you're located in a settlement area. Typically, we see about 1 in every 10 to 15 inquiries that actually results in an application, or is a serious request that is being continued to be worked through. And this is not unique to Frontenac either. And it truly is a good thing, because it means that property owners and even people outside of Frontenac want to invest in our area. And while this is a core function of our department to attract development and to be development ready, we need clear planning documents and resources to be able to do this. So as Joe and I were going over the presentation yesterday, we jokingly discussed and said how there's lots of potential knocking at Frontenac's door, but it's also knocking at our neighbors' doors as well. And we currently aren't resourced to open that door and move forward with that development. And this is the last slide that I will speak to, and then we'll flip it back over to Joe. But it really summarizes a lot of the township work that we've been working on and continued increasing demands for our department. So as I mentioned, applications continue to increase year over year, and they're more complex files, and we're also seeing a substantive increase in commercial development inquiries and requests. So even to build on this, yesterday I received 2 inquiries, one for a potential distillery and another for a new store and cafe. Our work, as I mentioned, is not just limited to planning applications, but also to policy work. So the slide here also speaks to official plan reviews. So North Frontenac is complete, Central Frontenac is nearing completion, and Frontenac Islands is expected to start in 2021, depending resources that we have in our department. Other major projects, so the North Frontenac zoning bylaw review is complete. North Frontenac did have to retain a consultant to move forward with that project, and that still resulted in significant staff time at both the county and township level as well, ensuring that the document really reflected local needs and demands as well. The Marysville secondary plan, as Joe mentioned, is nearing completion, but will still require an update to the official plan to be able to implement the document. And then depending on staff resources as well, the Central Frontenac zoning bylaw review was expected to begin in 2021.
Again, so I'll just talk about some of the county planning work that we've been doing, and it keeps increasing. Some of the major projects are listed on this slide. For example, communal services is ongoing with hopefully a goal of having recommendations back to County Council in early 2021 about what type of governance model is the best to allow to open the doors in Frontenac to allow new development, whether it be commercial, residential, or even employment lands to be developed on communal services. And again, this is potentially a significant game changer for promoting new forms of development in Frontenac. The natural heritage study is a very important part of the update to the county official plan. Unfortunately, because of working on the other projects, we're not able to probably bring that forward until 2022 once we've started the county official plan. Municipal Affairs has been telling us for a couple of years that they want us to do a regional study on our aggregates. I've been holding off on that. I don't believe it is a priority for Frontenac relative to some of the other projects, but it's something that we continue to do our population projections every 5 years. We were hoping to do a regional community improvement plan to promote new businesses in Frontenac starting in 2021. But again, we don't believe we have the resources to start that at this time. And we're also looking at South Frontenac. They have started their official plan update, which is a major step forward for South Frontenac in terms of its vision for the community. And County Council is the final approval authority for that plan, and Megan will be working closely with township staff on that project as it starts up next year. During our budget discussions with County Council next week, I will be asking for monies, $30,000, which was the same amount that I asked for when we started the county OP in 2014, to start the update to that plan, which would probably, and I will bring a work plan forward to council should they endorse that project, likely expecting the work to start on that in the third quarter of 2021. And then of course, our responsibility for approving subdivisions and plans of condominium. That activity is continuing to increase. And if we do get communal services to work, you can expect that that will trigger more development opportunities. Certainly the growth pressures are there within the commuter shed of the city of Kingston, which certainly has an impact on South Frontenac and will likely have an impact on Wolf Island. So that is expected to increase as well. Next slide, Megan. So key performance indicators, as you know, all of the departments in Frontenac County have gone through the lean process. And one of the indicators we have is our workload balance. And what I mean by that is we think we're doing good planning work if half our time is focused on the township planning applications and the township work we're doing, and half of it is focused on the game-changing projects like the communal services, like the private road study we did a couple of years ago, the regional CIP, the county official plan. So you can see that we have been far off the mark the last couple of years. And that is despite adding the manager community planning position in 2018. We're not meeting that commitment, and that means delays to some of the regional projects, for example, the Central Frontenac official plan, or delays in starting projects. And it's the regional initiatives that separate us from other parts of Eastern Ontario. So it is important for us to try to hit that 50% mark. Next, Megan, please. So with our current resources, we are experiencing delays to these strategic initiatives. What are some of the mitigation notes that we have at the bottom of this slide? Well, we will finalize the lean improvement exercise. We may have to do some cuts to our services. I won't know that until early 2021 after we get through the budget. It may result in some of the work that we want to do for the townships, like, for example, the Frontenac Islands official plan. We would have to turn to them and say, we don't have the time commitment right now. You will have to probably contract that work out. And to give you an estimate of what the costs are, talking to some consulting firms, a typical official plan done by a consultant in Eastern Ontario costs between $90,000 and $135,000. So that would be a cost that would have to be absorbed by the townships. Next, Megan. So again, delays to timelines for planning applications. Where there's a risk in getting the applications through under the Planning Act, as Megan has already mentioned. Both her position and the community planner position are working full-time on the day-to-day planning. We are looking at mitigation opportunities, including the community planning permit system, which is a consideration coming into the joint service review. It's something we need to talk to the townships with. And as Megan also mentioned, we're also looking at cost recovery opportunities with township staff. We will be talking to the 3 township staff over the next few months at looking at potential changes to planning fees, pre-consultation fees, so we can cover some of the costs of our planning services to those townships. So in the report, there's 2 options that we put forward for our department for 2021 and beyond. One is the status quo. And if you have read our report, you can see that our workload has gone up more than 60% since 2018. Some of that workload has been taken up by the manager of community planning position, but those hours are also a reflection of a lot of overtime hours that our department is putting in. And quite frankly, that is untenable for our staff in terms of the overtime we've been doing. So if we go with option one, the status quo, as I've outlined in the report, the work in 2021 would focus on 3 projects. First would be the day-to-day planning that we're doing, and as Megan has clearly laid out to you in this presentation. That will involve the entire department, including my position, to do the day-to-day planning. We also expect, based on what's been happening since the summer, an increase in interest in commercial development, and those are complex files compared to a traditional severance or minor variance, and that will take up more time for us. The other 2 items that we would be focusing on in 2021 would be getting the Central Frontenac official plan completed, adopted by Township Council, and approved by County Council in early 2021. It's very important because the new plan has a very strong vision for the future of Charlotte Lake, which could certainly take off in the next few years if we get the communal services to work. So it's important to have that work done soon. And then the other project we will focus on is the Marysville Secondary Plan. Council will eventually approve that plan, and the next step will be doing an amendment to the existing official plan. And that work has to be done before the middle of 2021 because the ferry's on its way. I believe it'll be arriving later in 2021, and that will certainly impact growth on the island. So
we're hoping mid 2021, but
good.
Yet to be confirmed. Thank you.
And the dock will be completed when, Dennis? 2022?
Hopefully the end of 2022, but the new ferry can operate out of the existing docks with a little bit of extra work. But
okay. So as I've said a number of times already, Megan and I intend to sit down with township staff and look at opportunities for cost recovery, and hopefully we can get some agreement on that and then come forward to our 3 townships councils for some recommendations. Option 2 is to hire an additional planner. We will be recommending that it's part of the budget discussions at the county in the next week. We recognize that in this position would be permanent. It's not going to be a contract because as far as I can tell, the growth is not going away, and we need the resources to be able to deliver those planning services to the townships if they still want us to do the work for them. It will allow for the manager of community planning to take some of the day-to-day workload off that position's shoulders and allow that position to help me with some of the larger regional planning initiatives. We also recognize that hiring this position will increase the cost of planning services. But again, cost recovery can provide an opportunity to reduce that cost, and hopefully we can solve that problem as we move forward. Next, Megan, please. So some of the intangibles, as we've talked to you in the last half hour or so, that we don't know what's going to happen over the next year, is the joint service review, which you'll be talking about, councilors will be talking about tonight. There is something called a community planning permit system. I won't get into it in detail, but it's something that we'd like to talk to the townships about. Councilors may remember last December, Queen's University planning students came forward with better ways of protecting waterfront. And one of the tools they recommended was using this permit system. It is in place in some municipalities in Ontario. It certainly improves the ability to deal with planning applications in a faster system. And it's something we'd like to talk to the townships about. We're not sure where communal services are going, but if I'm an optimist and hopefully we are able to solve this problem and take the financial risk away from municipalities, that is a tremendous step forward in our economic development opportunities. We can only interpolate based on the last 3 years, where planning application numbers are going, but we expect them to go up, but we don't know. And then there's the appeals to the local planning appeal tribunal. Any appeal that's filed will take up a lot of hours preparing for a hearing. A rule of thumb is for every day you have an LPAD hearing, you're preparing for at least 5 days ahead of time. And to give you an example, my involvement in the appeal of the Hardington subdivision, which was a 2-week hearing, was over 300 hours. Because you have to be prepared when you go into those hearings, and it's just an unexpected thing that is not in our control. Hopefully there won't be any appeals. And that is our overall presentation, Mr. Chairman, and I'm sure there's some questions that Megan and I can hopefully answer.
Excellent presentation, Joe and Megan. Thanks very much. And before I open up, I just want to say the option 2 on staffing that you present really doesn't worry me as a municipality if we can adjust the fees to cover that. So I think that's the key there. I'm not sure how long since we adjusted those fees, but I think we got some flexibility there. So when we get the budget, I think that'll be key to have some basic information and conversation at that point.
Yep.
Having said that, I'll open it up to the committee for questions. Raise your hand, or Phil, speak up. Ron V.
Yeah, I guess I have some questions and a comment. Are there any other cost savings in the recommendations tonight for the delivery review other than speeding up some applications, I guess, or giving delegated authority? That's one. The second part is I have stressed enough times to my council that if we get the official plan right, it should get rid of a lot of LPAC. On that note, when we get the official plan right, we are also going to ask for delegated authority of subdivision. So that should take some of the work off your table, hopefully.
Just to respond, first of all, Mayor Vanderwall, for tonight, the only planning recommendation I'm aware of is the community planning permit system and the time saving that can be involved. I'm not sure about the delegated authority. With respect to your official plan update, it is going to make a big difference. I agree with you. It's going to make a big difference for you to know exactly where you want the growth to go. And again, communal services can really help out with dealing with that growth. And certainly now that you've got a really well-functioning planning department, the idea of delegating authority to South Frontenac is certainly it's time to look at that. Having said that, I expect that if we, again, not putting too much hope on communal services, but if that takes place, there's certainly potential in the other 3 townships for new subdivision activity to happen. It won't, right now, the majority of subdivision activity is happening in South Frontenac, but I can certainly see it happening in the other 3 townships under communal services. Marysville is a perfect example. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Any other questions from the committee? Ron H.
Thank you. I got a few comments and questions. The first comment is, Megan, the planning uses, the inquiries for planning uses is only going to go up. I know I'm personally working on 2 or 3 right now myself, including vertical farms, tiny home development, and health and wellness. Those should be coming to you either before the end of the year or beginning of next year. So there's 3 from North Frontenac. They're in the works as we speak. So all that to say is the workload is going to continue to increase, and I agree we need some additional help in that area because but having said that, we're being asked today to approve the work plan that Joe is presenting today. And in there, it says to hire another planning staff member. And knowing that we're going to have a discussion tonight on modernization, I'm wondering if we can reword that resolution somehow, because I'm not in favor of hiring a person just yet until we go through the modernization, see if there's opportunities for collaboration throughout the townships and the county to make a better process for staffing. But we do need staffing, I agree with that, but I'm not sure that hiring somebody at this point in time at the county is the right way to go. And I know we're being forwarded to council, but just the planning advisory committee itself, I think, is to recommend to council to hire a staff member with limited knowledge of budgets and what's going on for the future related to modernization by some of these members on this committee might be unfair to some of the committee members. That's just a comment.
Sorry, Ron, just on that point, my apologies. So if you look at the recommendation in the report, it's not recommending that we hire another staff member. It's just recommending that you approve our work plan for 2021 as it relates to planning matters, and that you direct me to provide this overview to county council as part of the budget deliberations, and county council makes that decision about hiring another planner or not.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, that's the way I read it.
Joe. A question I have for you, Joe, is your work plan is strictly related to planning, but your department is planning and economic development. I just wanted to know, from the economic development perspective, are you okay for staffing and the workload at the economic development side, or are we just talking about planning with this committee? I know they're interrelated, but I know because they're interrelated, should we be discussing that as well?
Well, thank you for asking that question. That's a really good question. And this presentation and this report is only dealing with the planning side. Having said that, the committee may not be aware of this, but we have retained a consulting firm to do a service delivery review for the economic development side of the department. I believe the mayors would have been interviewed by the consultants. I know the CAOs at the townships were interviewed, outside agencies like CFDC, and they'll be coming. The consultants expect to come to county council in November or December with some recommendations on the future of the economic development side of our department. So that's something that'll be in front of county council before the end of this year.
Okay, and the last question I have is, some of the workload that's being done by the planning department related to enforcement, could that be addressed through a bylaw officer versus being it done through the planning? And I know that's going to be a council budget discussions on how to go forward. But I guess my question is, can some of your workload be offloaded to bylaw enforcement?
You can ask Megan if she would mind responding to that question.
So I would state that when it comes to non-compliance and enforcement, bylaw enforcement officers do carry a lot of the weight when it comes to the actual enforcement piece. So going out, issuing the notice, but typically bylaw enforcement or the CAO is consulting with planning staff to ensure that the bylaw is being interpreted correctly and that what has occurred is an instance of non-conformance. So I can speak to North Frontenac's process in particular, but I know that there's a section on all notices of contraventions that essentially is how do you remedy the situation, and often remedying the situation for non-compliance with the zoning bylaw is meeting with planning staff to determine if what you did without permits does actually meet the zoning bylaw or does it not, and what is something that planning staff could potentially support, whether that's a reduction in area, whether that's no structure at all. So I would say that enforcement is driven by the bylaw enforcement officers, but when it comes to zoning bylaw, has a significant planning component.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank
That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Perhaps I'll read the resolution and then ask if there's any more questions. Resolution is that the County of Frontenac Planning Advisory Committee recommend to County Council the approval of the 2021 work plan for the planning and economic development as it relates to planning matters, and further that the director provide an overview to county council as part of the 2021 budget deliberation, as well as the councils of the 3 municipalities which the department provides planning services for. Can I have a mover for that and a seconder, and we'll open up for discussion. Fran moves and Lisa seconds. Okay, we'll open it up for further discussion before calling the vote. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Yes.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Dennis, I had to question, one quick question.
Oh.
Megan, you, or Joel, I can't remember who mentioned it, but the K&P trail you said was completed to Clarendon and the next step was to do the islands. What about from Clarendon to the borders of North Frontenac?
Sorry, again, thanks for the question. Just for clarification, we will be coming forward with a plan to move forward through to the north, but I just wanted to make sure the committee was aware that we're not forgetting Wolf Island in this. There's tremendous potential to extend the trail from the city side onto Wolf Island. And it really hasn't been part of the discussions at the county council chamber after the last few years. But Richard Allen, the manager of economic development, will be coming forward with a K&P project proposal for moving the trail forward during budget discussions.
So last year when we talked about this at budget, we agreed that the K&P would be finished from Charlotte Lake to the borders of North Frontenac with Lanark Highlands. Is that still the plan?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else before we move on to communications? We've called the vote, and Brianna, I think you got the results. It was unanimous.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, so communications, there's a few listed there. Does anybody have any questions on that communications? Having seen no hands up, do we have any other business? Ron V, did I see your hand go up or was that just a movement? No, okay. Okay, so I guess we're down to the next meeting, but before that, I just want to again thank staff and the committee, everybody that's been involved in the Ardoch Lake, because thinking back over the years, I've been at many meetings on this going back to 2011 to 12 area, and we sure as heck have come a long ways and addressed numerous issues, valid issues on the environmental concerns. So I think that we're really moving forward in a good direction here. So the next
Just
meeting,
as a
I think.
comment on,
Yes, go ahead, Ron.
just a comment on that, Dennis. I've been involved on this since 2010. Before I became a member of any councils, I was a lake steward for that lake association. So I've been involved since 2009 or 2010, I believe, on this file.
Yeah, and expressing some really valid environmental concerns in those days, if I recall. Okay, so I think we're suggesting December 7th for the next meeting. Is everybody okay with that?
I'll probably be in the north deer hunting, but I'll let you know.
Well, we got, I think,
Don't
phone
have
lines
enough
up there,
deer?
don't we? Cell towers? Okay,
That is
You
a
don't have
Monday.
enough deer where you are?
That is a Monday and Dr. Moore's meeting, if we're still in a pandemic, which I'm guessing we will be.
yes.
As long as we're done by noon.
Well, I think that forces us to be done by noon. Yeah, I don't see these meetings should go any longer than an hour and a half, so. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll call for adjournment. Who wants to move that one?
I will.
Fran and Ron, and Phil spoke up, they'll second it. All in favor?
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. The meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Have a good week.
See you in December.